Do you regret your decisions?
About staying in the game? I was first introduced to the Starkey Hearing Foundation back in 2009.
Rick Ross has a bunch of chains too over the Wingstop. How'd you get involved in it?
Sidney Rice is a former Super Bowl champion, Pro Bowl wide receiver who walked away from the game early and most importantly, under his own control. We'll get into his reason for leaving the game later on, but for now, just know he's definitely been staying busy since he left the game. Dude's always in a positive state and seems to be making moves that fuel him. The main thing I took away from this cat is how he went with his gut, followed his intuition, and how he seems to be in a very happy place in his life that you can only attain through that self-trust. The lesson for today's video is this: when it's time to move on, don't linger, keep pushing, ignore the backlash, learn from all the minor L's you take, and in the end, you'll get the dub. Cue the Wayne. Yo, if you enjoyed these videos, don't forget to click the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and enable your notifications by clicking this little bell so YouTube will let you know when your boy uploads.
Still going.
Still having fun.
I guess he is officially bonded with his receivers, right? Holcomb going to the end zone, taken out of the air, touchdown Vikings. Very Randy Moss-like.
Before Sidney would go on to achieve massive NFL success, he had to first achieve it in the backyard in Gaffney, South Carolina, versus his two older brothers. After that, he moved on to terrorize high school kids in both football and basketball, on his way to multiple state titles in both sports. As a senior, Sidney caught 77 passes for 1,400 yards and 31 TDs. Then, dude moved on to basketball and led his squad to a 28-0 record on his way to a state title. This man won Player of the Year in football and in basketball, all in the same year.
In only 2 years, Sidney caught 142 passes for over 2,200 yards, 5th all-time in receiving yards in a career with 2233, all 4 ahead of him. Played 3 seasons at least. Please salute and honor Sidney Rice.
Sidney could have gone to basically any school of his choosing, but he opted to stay home and attend the University of South Carolina. After redshirting in 2004, he came in 2005 as a redshirt freshman and immediately made his mark not only on the team, but on the conference as a whole. Dude caught 70 passes, 13 touchdowns, and put up 1,143 yards, which put him 14th all-time in SEC history for receiving yards in the season. The following year, with opposing defenses keying on him, he put up similar numbers still: 72 grabs, 1,100 yards, and 10 TDs. Despite the numbers, this year was noticeably tougher on Sidney. He had caught at least 1 touchdown pass in his first 8 games of his career. I'm saying this man went from redshirted to catching a touchdown in every single game he played in for 2 months. Then during the second season, he only caught touchdowns in 5 games out of 13. It's tough being the main guy on an offense in the SEC. And honestly, after looking at his numbers, FAU kinda saved this season from a statistical standpoint. He literally caught half of the season's touchdowns versus them. So in a 10 touchdown season, he caught 5 of them versus FAU.
Backlash written on me, card robbing on a glass bowl. I've been balling, free my ladies in the counter now. I'm already out, already on the countdown. I'ma set it right. Got the backlash written on me.
Damn. In just 2 short years at South Carolina, he broke Sterling Sharpe career school touchdown record. If you don't know the significance of this, Sterling Sharpe, Shannon's older brother, who was even more talented than his Hall of Fame little brother, went to 5 Pro Bowls, 3-time All-Pro, and led the league in receptions and touchdowns multiple times, and was on a ridiculous pace before he got injured. This dude was the truth, and he started 3 years at South Carolina while Sidney only started 2. But despite all of that, Sidney still broke his records. Now I know what you're thinking. Flem, they probably didn't throw the ball as much back then. But no, they did. I checked. Sterling Sharpe started in 1985, 86, and 87. In those years, South Carolina averaged 351 passes per season. Sidney started in 2005 and 2006. In those years, South Carolina averaged 371 passes per season. So, while they averaged 20 more passes per year while Sidney was there, the extra season that Sterling played more than makes up for the difference. Remember, we're talking a career touchdown record. Although I will concede this argument is a bit flawed because it doesn't account for the amount of times they threw the ball in the red zone. And with Sidney being 6'4" and specializing in this, and Sterling playing back in the 80s, it'd be unfair to not mention this because it did likely play a role. I will admit that it was likely unnecessary to go down that rabbit hole, but hey, that's just how it goes sometimes. I had to know. So depending on how you feel about that, either you're welcome or I apologize. Moving on. In 2007, the Minnesota Vikings selected Sidney in the second round. Sidney's first 2 years in the league were solid, but far from spectacular. During those 2 years, as would be the case throughout a ton of his career, Sidney missed a lot of time with injury. He got hurt in year 1, came back, and then got hurt again in year 2. When he came back from his injury in year 2, he saw his playing time shrink to only situational reps, basically reducing him to a red zone only receiver. Then in 2009, something happened. Something receivers dream of, especially cats who are great at making contested catches. Sidney got the gift of a gunslinger quarterback. And not just any gunslinger, one of the greatest to ever do it. Brett Favre, like his graybeard counterpart, came to town. Sidney Rice's gift, 122 targets, the highest of his career. On those 122 targets, Sidney made 83 catches, went for 1,300 yards, and caught 8 touchdowns that year. Unfortunately for Sidney, late in the season, he injured his hip. Only good thing you can really take away from it is that he had already done enough to make the Pro Bowl that year. Now, Sidney prolonged getting the surgery. He was originally scheduled to get it that offseason, but he feared that it would hurt his performance and decided to take a risk and try to let the injury heal on his own. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and Sidney ended up getting a last-minute procedure 3 weeks into training camp the following year. Due to the late procedure, Sidney missed most of the season, but came back late and did contribute to some key Viking victories. However, it was very short-lived as he sustained a really bad concussion once again and was done for the season. Sidney went on to play for the Seattle Seahawks from 2011 to 2013. He only played in 9 games in 2011, but still put up 484 yards. In 2012, he caught 80 passes for 748 yards and 7 TDs. Clearly still a very, very effective player. The following year, the Seahawks would go on to win the Super Bowl. Only Sidney Rice, once again, was injured and was unable to play in that game. He tore his ACL late that October and was forced to only watch. Now to answer the question, what happened to Sidney Rice?
My story is unique because I'm willing to talk about it. A lot of the guys don't talk about it, they don't speak about it. After I had a certain amount of concussions, like almost anything could happen and I would like black out for a second. So I didn't think that was healthy at all.
Was there a specific moment that made you say, I need to stop the game? I need to stop playing this game?
It wasn't a specific moment. It was an interview I seen on, I believe it was Tony Dorsett and Herschel Walker, and their experiences with brain trauma. So you have these guys that's been going to the same house for 25 years and all of a sudden they get to a certain point on their way home and they have to call their wives to, get the directions home. So that's something that really hit home for me after having experienced so many concussions.
Do you regret your decisions?
About staying in the game? I don't regret them. I just think I should have had better judgment.
So Sidney Rice retired in 2014. What's he been doing since then? He didn't take too much time off. That same year, he began opening Wingstop franchises.
Rick Ross has a bunch of chains too over the Wingstop. How'd you get involved in it?
Well, it was something I wanted to do when I was playing in Minnesota. I never got around to it. Once I got out to Seattle, I went into one of the stores and actually spoke with the owner of that store. Him and I started communicating and just took it from there. He showed me the ropes.
He's worked with the Starkey Hearing Foundation and continues to give back in multiple ways.
Just recently retired, so I had a lot of time on my hands. And I was first introduced to the Starkey Hearing Foundation back in 2009. After sitting around hearing their stories, I just wanted to do what I could to make the world a better place.
Injuries played a huge part in not allowing Sidney Rice to reach his full potential in the league, but he definitely had a good career, although it could have been better. But I rock with Sidney because he hasn't let those things that did go wrong in his career stop him from making great moves in his retirement. He had a successful career, got into the league, got out, and he's still young and healthy enough to pursue other ventures that he's passionate about. So that's what happened to Sidney Rice. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like the video and hit me up in the comments section and let me know which one of your favorite players you want me to do a video on next. Till then, my name is FlemLo Raps. One.
Yeah, you'll never know quitter, 'cause I'ma go get